All right, now we're going to talk about controllable pitch props. So the two things we just talked about, the ground adjustable is not a controllable because the pilot can't control it, and the aeromatic prop because the pilot can't control it. But now we're going to look at propellers that the pilot can control. This is still different than a constant speed prop. We're working towards that. We got to build up to that. So the first one we'll talk about is the Beach Roby. B-E-E-C-H-R-O-B-Y. Beach Roby propeller. This particular one is similar to the aeromatic, and that you can see that it is a wood blades with a steel hub on it. And by the way, you can see right there, what is that little grease fitting? I'm going to talk a lot about grease fittings here. No, I'm not going to talk a lot about it. I'm just going to tell you a couple times that that's a real quick way to screw up a prop. Is that grease fitting right there? Do not go at this thing unless you know exactly what it is you're doing, how much it needs, what kind of grease it's got in it, what kind of grease it needs, everything. Just to go at it and start greasing something, because it's sort of the way it was done before in a lot of things. It's like, well, you put this on here and you pump out grease until it comes out clean somewhere. Well, to do that means that you may or may not be filling the entire hub full of grease, which is an awful lot of grease, which tends to sling to one side or another with air cavities and cause an imbalance. And then if you do pump it enough to get it out of something, it usually means that you blew the seals out of it. So don't do that. So what happens if you over-grease a propeller? Well, you don't need an overhaul. You do have to take it off for what's called a clean and inspect, where they take it apart, completely disassemble it, clean out all the... Is it clean and reseal? Yeah, I think they call it reseal. They disassemble the entire propeller, clean out all the grease, and then inspect it, and then call you up and tell you they found something that needs an overhaul. So now you need an overhaul. So that gets really, really... And then far too often with propellers, way too often, you call up the prop shop. Sorry, prop shop people, but this is true. Hey, over-greased it, or it's leaking grease. All right, send it in for a reseal. Call you up. Oh, yeah, found some stuff in here. We really got to overhaul it. We got some pitting and corrosion. Okay, how much? Well, before I tell you how much, I'm just going to tell you it'd be cheaper to buy a new prop. More often than not. So that could easily cost you 20 grand. So that's be the most expensive grease job you've ever done in your life.
Do not over-grease.
Unless you do it again later on when prices go up, which is entirely possible. Okay. Similar to the aeromatic with the wood blades in the metal hub, the bearings in the hub allow the blades to rotate. So now we're going to get some sort of pitch control out of this. But unlike the other propellers, this one, the pilot actually can control the pitch. How does this work, you're asking? Well, it does have this motor on here, which you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's really going to throw the whole thing out of weight. Well, you just got to put a counterweight with the same size motor down here, right? Okay. The motor does not spin around. The motor stays put. It's indexed to the engine, and so is this gear right here. The prop will spin around.
Is it still weighted?
Counterweighted? No, it just weighs something, but no. No, so this, I'm just joking around, because when you look at it, you're thinking, well, the motor spins around, and so does this, and how does that work, and how long do the wires have to be, and because it's spinning, so no. But this all stays put. All of this stays put. Of course, the propeller spins around and around. And so how does that work? Well, there are really two types or two versions of this. You've got the poor man version and the rich man version. Sorry, rich lady, poor lady. And the poor person version has a little crank in there. We got to crank it. But the rich guy one got a little electric motor right there that makes it go. So this has a picture of the electric motor, but this particular one has more of the crank. So what happens is you have this is not spinning around the engine. It's stationary, but obviously you can crank that. This little pinion gear will turn, and this will turn. Well, riding inside of this is this bearing house. This is a bearing. You have the inner race and the outer race. So this outer race has a pin that is indexed to these slots, and the inner race is spinning around with the propeller. And so what happens is as you turn this, it rotates this, and these slots move forward and backwards. Well, that it has a carrier where these little pins are, which moves that whole bearing forward and backwards. Follow? Mm-hmm. So the bearing moves forward and backwards. Well, on this arm, you have an actuator pin off the blade, and there's a hole in the arm which it doesn't show. It's kind of offset. So when this moves forward, it has a pin that tends to rotate the blade back and forth. So as the pilot, what you would do is you would say, well, I'm getting ready to take off, so I'm going to rotate it towards low blade angle. And it'd be low blade angle, and you'd give it the power, and you'd take off, and you'd climb, and as you finished your climb out, you'd pull back the power a little bit, and you just kind of twist the knob the other way, and it would move the blades towards a higher blade angle, and you'd watch your manifold pressure and your RPM, and when they were where you want them to be, then there you are. Now you're happy. Now you're happy.
You just eyeball it by watching your gauges?
Well, actually, that's the way we do it in any plane, even at constant speed. So in my airplane, like I take off, I've got the blue knob, which is actually black in my airplane. So I got the prop pitch all the way forward. So I got high RPM, low blade angle. I'm going to take off. I'm going to climb out till I get to the altitude that I want. Now I'm going to adjust my throttle a little bit. So I'll be managing the manifold pressure. So after about 1,000 feet, I'm going to pull back my manifold pressure, bring back some of the power because I'm safe from the ground. And then I'll continue to climb. And as I climb, we've talked about before, manifold pressure is going to automatically drop because atmosphere's getting less. Remember that? So I'm going to keep adding manifold till I get to where I'm at. And let's say I was just coming over here from my house. I'm like, I'm just going to go to 3,000 feet. Well, I'm not that high. So I'm going to get to maybe 3,000 feet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to level off, start building up some airspeed, pull back my throttle, which doesn't change the RPM. It
Stays the same.
RPM stays the same. What am I doing when I pull back my throttle?
Increasing manifold.
Reducing manifold.
Pulling back, closing the throttle.
Closing.
So manifold's gonna
Decrease.
decrease. So I've got a chart in the airplane that'll tell me, what manifold, what RPM. So I'll bring the manifold pressure, say, back to 20 inches. Okay, and my red line's 24. And rule of thumb is just flying square. So if I have 20 inches of manifold, I would want my RPM to be 2,000. See that? It's coincidental, by the way. So I would reach over and I'd pull back my RPM till the RPM got about to 21. And I'll look over at my manifold and it's going to be about 21. It was 20, but I've slowed the engine down. So our manifold's going to start coming up a little bit. So if I undershoot about an inch, then they'll meet about at 21. So same thing here, but from a constant speed perspective, it's gonna. If I set it at 2,000 RPM, it's nailed at 2,000. It's not going to change. I can pull back on the stick and start climbing. I can nose down. It's going to stay at 2. With this one, not so. The RPM is going to shift if you start doing stuff with the airplane because you've only set the blade. It's like you took off this propeller and put on a different pitched one. Or it's like you pulled over with a ground adjustable and gave it some twist or some flat. So you can't expect it to hold the RPM. It won't, but that's how you would do that. Anyway, it's just another picture of kind of what that looks like. I can read all that, but I like this one for this particular picture. It's a little more detailed where you can see these are the inner bearings right here, the inner and outer race, where it's going to move this fork, number 4, forward and aft. And as that moves fore and aft, it's pinned to this circle 5. You can see it down there too, which will then rotate the blade. Let me see. The manual drive one, which is actuated from the cockpit, rotates the large gear. 2, inside this gear bearing assembly. 3, moves the fingers fore and aft, which in turn rotates each prop blade to achieve the desired pitch setting with the propeller. And this prop is called the what?
Just control.
The Beach Roby. I'd actually call it that on the test, Mike. What about the Beach Roby? All right, so that's your old-timey controllable prop. And how were these controlled? With a crank or electric motors. All right, we got the crank or the electric motor right up there. That was your super option.
Would it just be like a dial input for the motor? If I have a motor on it?
Oh, the motor?
Yeah.
No, I imagine it'd be just like a trim. It's just got an electric switch. You just
Okay.
more or less. At some point, you get to a spot where I want more. It won't go more. Won't go less. It just stops within a range. You can see a stop right there bolted onto it. So that's probably going to be it's one of your stops. There's probably another one internal, of course. Let's see. Construction. We talked about that. Operation. Did that. I really don't think we want to write down all the little inner and outer bearings and the arms connected to the actuator. Maintenance, same as any other prop. Cracks, nicks, tracking loose bolts, safety, excessive blade movement. Except now we're going to add lubricate the control systems. Because you have a little crank. All right. Cool with that?
So lubricate control.
What's that?
Lubricate controls.
Yeah, lubricate the controls. Because now you have a crank that goes through a housing. You want to make sure it turns nice and smooth. Make sure that the motors, the wires are good on it. Oh, Beach Roby. So that's pilot controlled. Pilot controlled. Well, I talked a lot. I didn't have much to write on there. All right. Yep. Now I got to slow down a little bit. So now we're going to talk about the 2-position Hamilton standard. Believe this was actually invented by Hamilton, the president. No, it wasn't. Andrew Hamilton? I'm always looking this way. Andrew Hamilton? What's Hamilton's first name?
Smart
Oh,
side.
yeah.
That's it, yeah. My daughter would know. She loves the movie. She saw the play. I haven't. All right. 2-position ham standard.
Ham sandwich.
Ham standard. Right there. Look familiar? Just a couple of these guys. How heavy are those things? You carried around a couple of them.
It's fucking heavy.
That's how heavy it is. That's an actually.
That's the 2-position one?
Yep.
Got it.
Ham standard 2-position prop. All right. So often called controllable. Counterweighted. Counterweighted or 2-position. Designed so that the pilot can select one of 2 angles in flight. Can select one of 2 blade angles in flight. Kind of like a 2-speed transmission. Did the old Corvettes have 2-speed transmissions? Like a 57, 59?
Early one got a 2-speed power line, which that was the big thing, was how can you have a sports car with a 2-speed automatic?
Yeah, that's what my father-in-law's vet has. I'm like, what's this thing got? Got a
Cast
two-speed.
iron at that time.
Oh God. All right, so it's like a two-speed transmission. I don't know, maybe that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Which once again allows a low pitch for what? Takeoff and climb. TO is takeoff. Anybody watch the basketball game this weekend? I'm not talking about it. Is that what's going on? Or nobody actually watched it?
I'm in denial.
No. You know, you've been working on your instrument stuff for far too long. Every time I looked at the TV, I'm like, ground speed. Why do they have ground speed? Why is ground speed 12? Oh, Golden State. Golden State got it. Every single time, like ground speed. I mean, Golden State. Who's winning? Ground speed.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
that's a tough one.
Allows a high pitch for cruise. I'll say higher speed cruise, because any speed can be cruise speed if that's all you got. Basic operation. All right, got to remember some stuff. Basic operation. 1. Aerodynamic is a review. Twisting force, which shall henceforth be called ATF. Automatic transmission fluid. Normally causes, causes a blade to go to what?
High angle attack.
Okay, not high angle of attack. High blade angle. High blade angle towards feather. Towards feather. And CTF, which you all know stands for Chrysler's transmission fluid. Let me see. Yeah, I want to make sure. Causes blade to go to low blade angle or flat. All right, by installing counterweights, on some brackets attached to the blade, I don't need to write that on brackets. CTF is then used to drive prop or drive blade to flip it. So a minute ago, CTF caused the blade to go to low pitch. So I add counterweights, it's going to go high pitch. Drive blades to high pitch. Low RPM.
That's at the counterweights, not the blades themselves.
It's the blades themselves. It's attached to the blade.
Depending on where you put your counterweights, you can't just put them anywhere.
Yeah, they have to be in the right spot, otherwise you're really defeating the purpose there. So I think I can make this statement safely. When you see counterweights, When you see counterweights, that means, or that usually means CTF equals high pitch. We'll take it one step further. It's a dangerous statement to make at this point because this prop is an exception to that. We have not talked about constant speed yet. But this particular propeller is on a single. You can kind of tell right there. Normally, when you see any modern aircraft with counterweights, it means it went on a twin. Counterweights means a twin because we're going to use oil pressure to control the prop, and if we lose oil pressure, we want that loss of oil pressure to cause it to go to a feather. You don't want loss of controllable oil pressure to let a prop go to its natural low blade. That's the bad thing. So if you look at where these are attached, centrifugal twisting force is going to want to bring these here, which will take this blade and rotate it the same way, which will cause it to go to oops, did I just screw that up? Yeah, I did. I'm thinking, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. Sorry. The question is, which way do the weights want to go? Do they want to go in line here, which didn't make sense to me even when I wrote it, or are they going to come out this way? That make more sense, so thank you. So it's going to make the blades go towards feather. And we can look right there and we can see, I can see, that in fact they are all the way back. You can see by that slot right there, it's all the way back. So centrifugal twisting force is going to move it this way, which is going to cause the blade, this bottom blade, to kind of out, which is going to give it more of an angle. When the counterweight moves towards the center, which it doesn't want to do on its own, it's going to bring it towards a low blade angle. This is an unusual situation here that we have in all propellers. It's somewhat unique to this prop. That what position is it in right now? High blade or low blade? Towards feather or towards flat? The counterweight is in fact all the way this way. Centrifugal twisting force has had its way with it, and it's all the way up here, is it not? And so if I brought the counterweight this way, would that be, this way is, I can't write on it in this position. This way up here is high. And this way is going to be, if it's in line here, it's going to be, so what position is it in right now? Well, sorry. This right here is high, that is low. How's that work for you?
So it's
Yeah, we can't say feather though, because feather means it's all the way this way. This prop doesn't do it. It's maxed out.
It's approaching the feather.
So is towards feather is what I say. Towards. It's not approaching. It's got a long damn way to go. So what angle do we have here? High blade angle. Does everybody see its high blade angle? I didn't screw up too bad because at this point it's my fault. So if the counterweight is right here in line with that, it is high. If it's down here, it's, so what position is it in right now? It's very unusual to see a prop in high pitch when it's on the ground. Because what position do we take off in? Low. And as you'll see in a little while, especially with these props on twins, the last thing I want is this thing to go in feather. It's very, very difficult to start a prop when a piston engine aircraft in feather. It puts a tremendous load on the starter. And once it does start, man, it just shakes down the airplane. The manifold pressures are really high. It's like, well, that's pretty rough. You do have to do it occasionally, so, but it's hard. It's hard to get them restarted. So you don't want to shut down an aircraft in feather, so we'll talk about that. But this particular one, just note, it is shut down in high. This is a unique prop. It's going to kind of,
What's the occasion
well,
for
I'll
starting a feather?
oh, maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, on the ground. Otherwise, in the air, well, you do it a lot in the air for training purposes.
Okay.
So it's just as part of training in a twin. You got to shut down one engine and fly. But to restart, this is next week's. You can just take it out of feather and either let the accumulator or you just start turning it and it goes back. But on the ground, we have to check feathering. mechanisms and stuff.
On those weights, how do the stops work? Because I took the one,
Well, I'll get to that. Getting ahead of me now. Okay. It's like, but I've got to get to this right now. Okay, so we got this right here written down? Yeah, okay. All right, let me see. So, what makes it go to high blade angle? CTF. All right, so C. So engine oil pressure is used to overcome CTF and drive prop to low pitch, low blade angle, high RPM. So we're just going to use engine oil. So with every single prop we're going to talk about from here on out, you're looking for two forces. Sometimes we can add three, but for the most part, it's almost always two. Centrifugal twisting force. It's going to do one of two things.
high or low?
High or low. That's it. If it has no counterweights, then it's low. If it has counterweights, then it's high. Then you're always going to look at the opposing force, which is always going to be oil pressure of some point. Either straight off the engine at less than 100 psi or through a governor that's going to boost it. That's it. Now, some props will add some helpers in there. You can add spring pressure. You can run into a prop that has oil pressure and governor pressure, or you can have air pressure. You just add some helpers in there. But without exception, every other prop is going to have centrifugal twisting force and oil to counteract. So one's CTF one way, oil the other. Just going to depend on how we do the oil. So just watch for that. And it's so easy, honestly. Once you figure that out, you walk up to any prop out there and it says, is this a single or a twin? It's got counterweight, so it's a twin. So if it's a twin, does that make it feathering or non-feathering? Feathering. So counterweights means it comes off a twin, with the exception of this one. And if it's a twin, then it's going to feather. Well, what's centrifugal twisting force does what? Goes towards feather. That's why the counterweights are on there. Then what drives it to low pitch? Governor oil pressure. Next. All right, so it's not, huh? Well, there's a little more than that to it.
I was about to say.
Not much more. There's not much more. Let's see. So engine oil. Okay, we got that. D. The pilot operates a control valve. Oops. Let me see. The pilot operates a control valve. Let's look how it works before we write a bunch of stuff. Because Vic said he likes it that way.
Vicky.
We gotta make Vic happy. He's my guy. I hate these photos. I'm just gonna tell you right now, they're screwball. And so it just takes me a minute to go, because there's something about every one of them that I don't like, and I forget what it is.
Just the arrows going in all different directions.
And I don't think it matches the words. So, let me see, where's my control valve? I want my control valve first. There we go, we got a control valve. So really the pilot just has a control valve that's two position. High pitch, low pitch. Actually, forward would be low pitch. Back would be high pitch. Why is forward low pitch?
Balls to the wall.
Balls to the wall, which means engine RPM is
High.
high. So forward is going to be high RPM. All right. And so we simply have engine oil pressure is coming in here, and it's going to the prop. So engine oil is going in. It's going to the prop. That means it's overcoming centrifugal twisting force, and that's going to mean, what is it? High or low pitch?
Low pitch.
That's going to be low pitch. And the other way is going to be lined up this way. And so that means the prop drains. So that's going to go out that way and drains off. So you're losing oil pressure. So what's going to win? Centrifugal twisting force, which is going to make it go into high pitch, also known as low RPM. thought I had colored photos in here. Okay. This says oil pressure is released and the centrifugal force on the counterweights increases blade angle. If we're increasing the blade angle, then that means that the counterweights are in fact moving the way that they should go. So that is out this way. So we're going this way. So CTF is winning. So oil pressure is released. So there is no oil pressure. It's moving that way. And it's something about this I hate. It is going to this position, and this is moving back a little bit. No. What's going to happen is you're releasing oil pressure. That's what it is. This is showing it not in the position they're talking about. This is showing it in low pitch. That's the problem. It shows it in low pitch and talks about high pitch. So what's happening is you are releasing the oil, so the oil that is in here is now starting to work its way out the hub through the control valve and then start draining. So right now we are in
Low RPM, high pitch?
Opposite. We have, this is full of oil, so it means oil pressure is there, and the counterweights are currently in. They haven't gone out yet, so they are in. So that means that we are in.
Low pitch, high pitch.
Let's see. Counterweights are in, which means that counterweights out is towards feather. All right, so it's away from feather, so flat. So right now we are in low. This is actually low pitch right now. So this picture is low pitch. And it is low pitch for two reasons, or the main reason is we have oil space here, and this area is exposed, which is a deal. So that is low pitch. And what happens is we are going to go finish there. So we are now in high pitch towards feather because the counterweights have come out, covering almost all of this. This is the piston is now mostly covered up. Go back one.
And that's when the engine oil is going to the prop?
See that versus that. And all of the engine oil has been drained out, and centrifugal twisting force has won the battle. See, there's no space right here. Now, to make this go into low pitch, high RPM, I will need to add oil. So if I add oil, which the directions, thank you, the arrows are actually showing me, but nothing has happened yet. Oil is going to come in here. It's going to start to fill this up and push all of this outwards. You see it's going to push that out until it gets to that. Now when it's there, it is in low pitch. But I want to go to high pitch now. So what do I got to do? High pitch, low RPM. I got to drain the oil out. So align the valve, start to drain it, counterweights start to move up, piston starts to move back. Boom. Now I am in high pitch. So this is high pitch, low RPM. So remember a little bit ago I showed you that photo and I said we've shut down the engine and we shut it down in the in the high pitch position, which is very unusual. You do that because it hides a lot of this polished surface. It protects it from rust and getting into the environment. So you shut it down that way. So if we go back here, all of this is exposed and that'll rust right there. So I would like to shut them down this way. Do you follow? Yeah, it was a little complicated, right? I mean, it's not, but it's pretty easy. This particular picture shows the prop in what position? Never mind the wording. What position am I in right now?
Low pitch.
Low pitch. What RPM is that?
High.
High RPM. Which way's the control? Forward or aft? Forward control. And what has won the battle here?
Oil pressure.
Oil pressure has overcome CTF. All right, same prop. What do we got here? What position are we in?
I pitch.
High pitch. By the way, when I'm asking questions like that, it's most of the time because I don't know. I just need you to yell it at me.
Yeah.
What are we in now? and if only one person answers, I'm like, I can't just go with one person. I got to have a bunch of people. I got to start thinking, I don't want to do that. I mean, you have no idea what I'm up here drinking. So you guys got to, help me out here. You're not wait for you all the wrong thing and I write it and I'll be like, oh yeah, well you said it. High pitch, what RPM?
Oh.
Low RPM, and that means the handle prop control is forward or aft? Aft. Aft control. Man, you say it with authority. Have I told you my say it with authority thing yet?
Say it with your chest.
You guys aren't really I have some class. You guys just aren't that class where it's like aft control. I mean, when you're doing an oral, say it with authority and conviction. I will tell you so often when you do it with authority and conviction, sometimes I'll be like, oh, shit, I wandered away. I don't even know what he said.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I'm like, hey. But
Keep
the
going.
minute you say it like it's low pitch, I just what? Okay, I'm awake now. Like, what are we talking about? Nope, you're not confident. Here we go.
Red alert.
Same thing as a DME. Man, when I was a 10 hours of testing, you start to walk off a little bit. I'm tired too. It's like, but man, they say with authority. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to ask them to repeat it. I'll just go.
Yeah.
All right, aft control. What has won the battle? CTF has overcome
Oil pressure.
oil pressure. There you go.
Does it really overcome oil pressure if there's no oil there?
Well, there was oil pressure. It pushed it all out.
Yeah, but you're opening
But
the
you're
drain,
draining it.
So,
The pilot has overcome the oil pressure.
Yeah, you're just draining it.
All right.
Let's not get too technical.
We don't get technical around here. How would you have wrote it?
I mean, that's.
Let's not confuse it with facts.
Yes, that's exactly what it's the point I'm
we
trying.
were confusing ourselves.
Yes.
So.
I'm trying to make it very simple so that these are the things you can say to an examiner, and it'd be like, I would be like, yup. Trust me, as a mechanic examiner, I never got hung up on nuances. It's like you have the idea, you sort of know what you're talking about. I like it. You get how this works. Never be like, well, does it really overcome oil pressure? Okay. All right, so we covered that. Construction. Let me see. Yeah, we covered that in a very, very good way. I like the way we did that. So for shutdown, we'll write that. Valve for shutdown. Shutdown. We place the prop in high pitch. High pitch. Lever back. This forces oil out of cylinder. Right? Because we had to think about, we live in California where it's always warm, but you live in a cold environment. That oil is going to be very cold and congeal up there. We don't want that. So now we're going to force the oil out, go to the oil tank where we can dilute it if we wanted to with what? Gasoline. And then we're going to get nice warm oil out there. And also to cover more of the piston with the cylinder.
on the starter? Because you're starting
Mhm.
off in a.
Yep.
But they kind of like.
Oh, but some of these planes have really cool starters, like inertia starters.
Okay.
You wind it up, you get it going. By the way, guys, if you ever start a plane with inertia starters, oh, it's awful. Because you wind them up, you get the starter spinning really good, and hang on here. There we go, right there.
That's on the side, right? Yeah.
So there's your right there. So you put the crank in there, you get it going, and you get the thing just screaming, and then you grab that little handle right there. Sometimes these are primers too, by the way, so be careful. Well, I'm telling you stuff, and I do know that they do put primers on the outside of Stearman's, so I can't totally remember, but I'm pretty sure this is the inertia starter right there. And then once it's screaming, you pull this thing, and you just hear it slam the gears, and the prop starts going. So I worked with the guy when we were building these engines. That's a Lycoming R680, by the way. He's like, first time I went to start one like this, don't do that. He said, pull it, engage the starter, and then start spinning it, and you'll be just fine. And you do. You engage the teeth, and now you start spinning it, and the engine just starts going slow and faster until it catches, and then there's none of this slamming stuff done. Yeah. It's missing the oil cap, too. But anyway, they do put primers out here, so you can kind of do the prime and stuff out there. Anyway, just by the way. Yeah, you got to lock that primer. God, that primers come out like that far, though. They're amazing. Spider. All right, system components. So I would write that as like 4 system components. This is the Spider. Obviously, this would be for how many blades? 3. This would be a 3-blade Spider. Probably the 2-blade Spider. Memorize this picture for the test.
Who's included?
We're gonna only be tested on the odd number one, right?
Yeah, this half, that half over there. These are a little complicated in how they go together, in that the way that you actually have to put the prop on, then you put in the center core, and that locks in the prop. I have a little movie we can watch. Actually, it's kind of fun. And then the then the cap goes on. So there's a lot of moving parts to this with some seals in there. And I tell you that I had a very bad experience overhauling an engine one time. And it just went bad every which way but loose. And you're like, tell the story.